Hello there folks, it's Andrew Demeter here reporting on Friday night about 6 o'clock. Tonight we have a special guest. She is a wife, mother, freedom fighter, definitely historical figure coming in the next few days, and the creator of the global event March Against Monsanto. Tami Monroe Canal, thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me, Andrew.
To begin with, I want you to explain to viewers what the March Against Monsanto is.
March Against Monsanto is a global protest happening on May 25th to kind of let everybody know what's going on with Monsanto and the GMO crops that they're poisoning us with. Monsanto is a seed and herbicide company whose actions are designed to maximize its corporate profits. They have no intention of serving the people. They betray humanity, they betray life, they malign Mother Nature, and they do so at the expense of all of us.
You mentioned briefly what Monsanto does, but why should the general public be so concerned and pay attention to this event?
Monsanto is responsible for many atrocities against humanity. Dating back to the Vietnam War, they were responsible for Agent Orange, and I'm sure everyone in their life knows somebody who's been affected by that. In Vietnam, there are many children, I believe it was like 400,000, that suffer from horrible birth defects to this day because the land is just so heavily filled with the poison still. Monsanto also has DDT, PCB, and aspartame on their resume of horrible products, as well as Roundup, which research is coming forth to show that the glyphosate, which is the key ingredient in Roundup, is linked to many horrible diseases that we are seeing on the rise in this country, such as Parkinson's, autism, infertility, just to name a few.
And even if you are unconscious of the Monsanto products that you're eating, they're responsible for 90% of the corn, soybeans, canola oil, and sugar beets produced throughout the country.
And cotton's another big one that they have their tentacles on.
Monsanto is definitely rooted deep in our not only food supply, but also life across the board. So how did you discover Monsanto, and what motivated you or inspired you to kick off this event?
I've always been really health conscious. I was living in California during the Prop 37 days. I tried to help spread the word and get that passed. A week before the election, it was actually expected to pass by 60%, and come election day, it failed at 49% versus 51%. Which I found suspicious, but it was also incredibly upsetting because I just felt like as a consumer, we really do have the right to know what we're eating and what we're feeding our children. A recent study done by GMO-Free USA tested Fruit Loops, and Fruit Loops came back 100% genetically engineered, and that is a product marketed at children. My own kids were really the inspiration behind this because I feel Monsanto directly threatens their longevity, their health, their fertility. It's not just my kids, it's just all the kids in this world. Like, I feel as the generation that's bringing up this new generation, we really have an obligation to make sure that they have a chance at a healthy future.
Most definitely, and like you mentioned, Fruit Loops, it's never a good sign when you see a rainbow toucan. So there's probably some genetic engineering going on with that, but just as a side note. And then also you mentioned the Proposition 37, what that was trying to achieve was basically, again, transparency with food and your right to know. And I find it kind of ironic because in Europe, GMOs are outright banned, but in the US, the land of the free, home of the brave, this whole era of transparency, you don't get to know what you're mindlessly consuming, shoving down your throat on a daily basis. So that is definitely unsettling.
Part of that problem is the cronyism between the government and Monsanto. We have Michael Taylor, who is the FDA Deputy Commissioner of our food, and he has spent the better part of 2 decades ping-ponging back and forth between the USDA, the FDA, and Monsanto. And there's also Clarence Tamis, who is one of our Supreme Court justices assigned to protect the people, refuses to recuse himself from any cases that involve Monsanto. And as former Monsanto attorney, that's a direct violation of judicial law, and that's unacceptable and a complete conflict of interest.
It's just this whole cycle of corporations and their counterparts over at the federal level, and they're just benefiting from themselves basically and not making decisions based on the public's best interest. It's just so disgusting that this land of America, of freedom, has transitioned into something so grave. What is your goal of marching against Monsanto?
Minimally, I do think we need to have labeling. As I said earlier, the consumer has every right to know what they're buying and spending their hard-earned dollars on. Ultimately, I really believe we need a ban in this country. There are 60 countries in the world who have bans on Monsanto and their products. And like you said, the land of the free, here we are poisoning our taxpayers and hardworking citizens. It's unreal. Countries like Hungary and Haiti have literally destroyed and burned crops. These are third world countries who would rather starve than eat the aid that's sent over by Monsanto. I mean, that should speak volumes to every single person out there.
Corporations that are subsidiaries of Monsanto, like ConAgra, started this initiative online to end world hunger when truthfully we know they're putting worthless Ben Bernanke bucks in their pockets. With this march against Monsanto, do you think that she'll garner any mainstream media coverage?
I don't think we will. The media is ran by 5 corporations that basically control all the news that we get to hear. What people are seeing on CNN and Fox News really isn't the grit that they should be seeing. There's a lot of real news out there that does not get reported. So I think that what we're doing is kind of a slap in the face towards the government and Monsanto. We're literally speaking the truth. We're not being slanderous.
And the media is, again, like you mentioned, so corporatized and so sensationalized that they begin making the news and not reporting on it. They have this unilateral script that basically rules over every network and constricts the information you hear. Basically, ignorance is bliss to this issue. If people don't know about it, it's not going to hurt them, but truth be told, it is.
Absolutely.
This past March, Obama signed the Monsanto Protection Act, and that basically protects Monsanto from any federal litigation. Do you think that the recent Monsanto Protection Act has rallied any new supporters to the march against Monsanto, making them even more mad to the point of taking action for themselves?
I really do. We actually started the page about 2 or 3 weeks before the signing of the Monsanto Protection Act, and I think that really fueled the fire. People are so angry that we were betrayed by our elected officials, people put in office by the people, and they have basically stabbed us in the back by allowing this company to have judicial immunity. Everyone in this country needs to be held accountable for their actions. When Monsanto just has all this access to fake data and to put a product out there that's actually threatening human health and the environment, that's just unacceptable. And I really think that a lot of people have directed their anger into participating in this march, which is wonderful.
I find it funny how somebody can go to jail for smoking a plant, yet the people who create products such as Monsanto have federal immunity. So where's the logic in there? Marijuana proven to cure cancer, that's illegal, but something that is poisonous, cephalotoxic, is in our food?
It's absurd.
I came across this article, and it said the CEO of Monsanto Company, Hugh Grant, was basically saying that the march against Monsanto's goal is to capitalize off public interest, this allegedly sensationalized event. And he's also saying that you're spreading misinformation, that, of course, Monsanto doesn't use pesticides. It's not the equivalent of spraying Roundup on your tomatoes in a salad or anything like that. So to those people out there who are actually truthfully spreading the lie, what do you say to them?
I think they're kind of running scared because they realize that we're raising so much awareness and we're going for boycotting, we're going for bans, and I think they're really concerned about their bottom dollar being threatened, that they're going to try and discredit our movement as much as possible, which is fine. I think a lot of people see through it and realize the corruption. Their history speaks for themselves. The other thing that they want to try and do to discredit us is say that they're curing world hunger, which is completely fictitious. Hunger is not a global production problem. It's a global justice problem. Money can't be a part of that. People need to have access to land and for money themselves in order to end hunger. And genetically engineered crops don't provide anything that's going to stop that.
If you're looking for evidence out there, there have been various tests conducted on rats who consume GMO. Rats actually share 99% of humans' identical DNA. They have caused tumors, and it's just disgusting, these adverse health effects on these organisms that consume GMOs.
There was actually another study done too on hamsters, and by the 3rd generation, the hamsters were virtually sterile, and the ones that were able to have babies, the babies had a lot of birth abnormalities and a very high mortality rate.
GMO consumption is even linked to infertility, like you mentioned, nerve damage, cancer, a whole slew of diseases and terrible things that you don't want to live with. Considering various other protests, do you think any rogue agents will infiltrate your global protests and possibly provoke any violence?
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. I don't want to scare our participants, but we are encouraging all of our organizers to contact their local police departments and let them know that we are absolutely 100% advocating a peaceful event, and any provocateurs, we fully condone them being arrested, because that's not what March Against Monsanto is about. This is a campaign to spread awareness, and the time for violence is not now. So I would not be surprised. We're already kind of getting infiltrated by trolls, as you call them, on our Facebook page, trying to discredit what we're doing, trying to get a rise out of the different event pages. And I've just asked people to take the high road. Clearly, they want to sink to immaturity. March Against Monsanto and all of our participants, we're just going to take the high road. We're going to spread our message. We're not being slanderous. We're being absolutely truthful and quoting scientific fact. So I can stand with my integrity and know that we are the ones in the right.
I'm really glad that you took that very logical action to contact police forces and notify them of this, because that will pretty much ensure that if there are any provocateurs, they are definitely trying to debase the March Against Monsanto. In your opinion, have your children been receptive at all to any of the activism that you've evoked in the community?
Well, I have a 17-month-old who's a little too young to get the gist of what's going on, but I have a 6-year-old, and she tells me all the time how proud she is of me, and she's told all of her friends at school that my mommy has got the March Against Monsanto. And I guess they had Capri Suns today, and she would not drink one. And she was telling all her friends about high fructose corn syrup, which I think is awesome. She's definitely getting it.
Refusing a simple Capri Sun at school is just such a vocal manifestation of civil disobedience.
We have to start young with teaching our children what's right to eat. We don't want to have this epidemic of obesity in our youth, and this is like the first time that our youth isn't projected to outlive their parents. That's absolutely a fixable problem, and it starts with the parents doing right by their kids and taking the time to cook meals at home, cooking from scratch, eating from a locally grown garden, hopefully one that you grow yourself.
Would you personally rather label GMOs or ban them? Because personally, my thought process is that I can open the door to people, give them information, but ultimately, advocating voluntarism, it's their choice to go through that door and make wise decisions based on their health. So what would be your opinion on that?
No, I get what you're saying, but I actually think that we need a ban. We have a problem with the wind. There was an instance in Canada where a farmer was sued by Monsanto because their crops had blown into his farm, and the seeds, were in the ground and then grew and all this. And Monsanto sued him for using their seeds without their permission. So I think they just need to go all the way around. They don't offer anything good. The pesticides that they're spraying on them because they're weed resistant are killing our bee population. They're killing our butterfly population. And that's a short-term effect. What's going to happen if we let this run rampant for another 40 years? Are birds going to start dying? Bigger mammals? Absolutely 100%. We need a ban.
That's very thought-provoking, because being the voluntarist, the anarcho-capitalist that I am, they're suing farmers to the point where they're committing suicide. It's just disastrous across the board.
Absolutely.
What do you think is the future of the March Against Monsanto? Is it going to be an annual event?
For me, this is absolutely the start. We're not going to stop until they're gone. We are throwing our support behind moms across America. After that, as we all know, the Monsanto Protection Act is slated to end in September. September 30th is the date. If that does not happen, March Against Monsanto is already looking forward to World Food Day on October 16th to do something on the global scale again. And I would 100% like to see it as an annual event. Another facet for March Against Monsanto is going to also be pursuing the school districts to get healthier meals on the lunch program, because right now as taxpayers we're basically paying for this poison to be fed to our kids. That's very irresponsible, and as I said earlier, it's our obligation to make sure these kids are being raised healthy.
That's great that you mentioned the school lunch program, because I know I don't like going to my school and eating GMOs on a daily basis, especially when they have Michelle Obama propaganda saying, oh, try this 30-day eat healthy schedule. Like, really, GMOs, come on.
What's easy for her to say is she's picking organic food out of her garden for her children to eat. She doesn't face the strife that most people in this country are facing on a day-to-day basis. Monsanto really targets the lower income families in this country. There are people that rely on those school lunch programs to make sure their kids have a decent meal every day at school. And that's one of the reasons that we need to make it a healthier, more nutritious meal, is because it's not right for someone to be dependent on something that is harming their body in the long run.
And even more of a slap in the face, Obama goes around with his personal chewer of food to test all the food he eats, and I wonder if he has a GMO food tester. But anyways, how can people get involved with this march against Monsanto?
You can check out our website, www.march-against-monsanto.com, for a complete list of the events going on. Right now we're on 6 continents, spanning 41 countries in 338 cities across the globe, which is awesome. If you're not able to make it out to a march, I really encourage you to raise awareness amongst the people in your life, your friends, your family, your neighbors, your coworkers. Let them know what a GMO is. Encourage them to spend an afternoon Googling it. I think it's really going to open a lot of people's eyes. You can do a screening in your neighborhood of genetic roulette. You can, as gifts to people for their birthdays, buy them Seeds of Deception by Jeffrey Smith. That's a real eye-opener. And anybody that reads that still thinks GMO is not bad, I don't even know what to say to those people. Contact your legislature, encourage them that the people do not want the Monsanto Protection Act renewed in September, that Monsanto needs to go. I touched on it earlier about growing gardens. That is definitely the best way to unchain the shackles that Monsanto has on us, is becoming a more self-sustainable society.
If anybody gave me genetic roulette or any information really on GMOs before I was aware and conscious of them, that would have been the best birthday gift I really could have ever imagined. So yeah. Tami, thank you so much. I can't even express how much I appreciate this interview. It's been very influential, and I'm sure it will be very audacious in this movement against Monsanto and waging war against thought and knowing what's in our food. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully I'll speak to you soon. Best of luck with the March Against Monsanto, and I know I'll be marching as well.
Thank you, Andrew, so much for your time. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, you too.